Good morning, everyone. My name is Khai Tran. I'm the CEO of Waterfront Ventures. We are an economic development organization. We work to help bring startups into underserved communities in order to bring jobs and opportunities to that particular community. In addition, Melissa and I, we also co-founded a co-working space together at the moment in Camden in order to bring those startups in. And I'm also the CEO of Penji, which is a graphic design startup that specifically locate itself in underserved communities, so that way we can provide jobs and opportunities to students. I want to start by discussing the article that was published by the New York Times, written by Nick on October 1st, which states that our Governor Murphy wants to invest $500 million into bringing startups into the state of New Jersey within the next 5 years. As part of his plan to reshape the economy of New Jersey, Governor Philip D. Murphy wants the state to play the role of venture capitalists to lure startup companies to the state. When this article was published earlier this week, it caused a little bit of a stir in our community, and there were a lot of questions being thrown our way. Some of the questions are, why startups? Why does our governor want to bring startups in particular to New Jersey? And are they worth $500 million? Is there anything else we could do with this $500 million other than investing in startups? And has this ever been done before? Are we the first to attempt this? These were some of the questions that sprung up. I'm sure there's more in the inbox right now, but these were some of the common questions. And for today's presentation, in addition to talking about real estate development, I'm going to go over this as well. They kind of go hand in hand. Let's start with the first question. What's a startup? Could I get a show of hands? Who here knows what a startup is? Okay, that's good. It's not too bad. Is anybody here a co-founder or a founder of a startup company? Okay, that's pretty good. And who here works for a startup company? Okay, so startup is prevalent, and it does seem like a lot of people know what a startup is. And we're going to go over the definition because it is very vital. A startup is a newly emerged business venture that aims to develop a viable and highly scalable business model to solve a problem. Now, on this particular definition, I highlighted highly scalable because a lot of times we're asked, well, what's the difference between a startup and a small business? Every startup company begins as a small business, but the major difference is their ambition. A startup does not want to make $1 million a year. They want to make $1 billion a year. They want to exit. A startup is not satisfied hiring 5 employees for the rest of their life. A startup is not happy running it within their family. A small business may be content with those, but a startup company, they want to grow big. And their ambition is what separates them from a small business. And that's a really key differentiator, and this is actually one of the reasons why they're so attractive. So that brings us to the question, why does every major city today, state, wants to attract startups? New Jersey is actually not the only state that wants to bring startups to their city. Very far from it. If anything, we're actually late to the game. So here's the question, why do we want startups? And there's actually 4 reasons for that. The first reason is that they are most likely to come to your city. Let's say a state wants to attract a small business. A small business most likely has their root planted in that city. More than likely they live within that city, whether it's a mom and pop shop or a local store. A small business is very difficult to relocate and requires a lot of planning. It might take years for them to finally pull the trigger. Let's say you want to bring a large business or a Fortune 500 company. What will that take? Tax credits, tax incentives, a lot of proposals. Startup companies, especially those that are tech startups, are very different. It's pretty easy. You just tell them it's great there, have some events there. The barrier to entry in order to attract a startup company is much lower than a small business and a large company. And that's what makes them very attractive. The second reason is that they grow fast and they hire fast. I'm sure you can see why this is highly attractive to our governor. There are statistics from City Labs and the Kauffman Foundation that shows that startup companies, historically, within the past 20 years, actually provide more job opportunities than both small businesses and Fortune 500 companies combined. So that's, again, why they're so attractive. They grow fast and they hire a lot of people. Okay, this one sounds a little obvious, but they're fun. Let me ask you a question. When you guys think of California, what do you think of? Sun, beach. How about Miami? Okay. How about New Jersey? Exactly. Okay. We don't really think of fun. When you think of New York, when foreigners come when people from London, from Hong Kong come to America, I can bet you none of them are thinking, wow, New Jersey, that sounds like, no. Maybe Atlantic City. But a startup community actually generates a lot of PR, and they tend to be associated with fun because you know what? They're the ones who go out. It's true, we go out a lot, okay? We're the ones who go to bar, we eat, okay? We're the ones who actually capitalize on the entertainment within that city. So yeah, we're fun, and that actually is a major contributor because if you have fun people there, and I'm just speaking in plain terms, other people will come, okay? If you have boring people there, no one's gonna come. A good example of this actually is within Philadelphia. If you look at Philly, okay, anybody here familiar with Fishtown and Old City? It's kind of fun, right? So Fishtown and Old City are neighborhoods within Philly that are populated mostly by creatives and startup companies. And it's no wonder that it's a lot of fun there. Whenever we go to Philly, I can tell you one of the first two destinations are Old City, Fishtown, or Center City. We don't go anywhere else beyond that. And the fourth reason on why startups are so attractive is that they attract retail, entertainment, and venture capitalists. Back to number 3, obviously, if they're a lot of fun and they capitalize on entertainment and they go eat and they go to bars, naturally, they become the prime demographics for a lot of retail and restaurants and entertainment, and also VCs as well. So wherever they go, they bring a whole entire army with them. And that's one of the reasons why we want to bring them to New Jersey, because we're going to get a lot more of everything else. Okay, so now that we know the reasons why they're so attractive, has this been done before? The answer is yes. This data here was curated in combination of the Kaufman data and City Labs data. These are the top 10 cities that have attracted the most number of startups and have the highest startup growth rate in 2017. Atlanta up there, Seattle, Chicago, Boston, and Philly made the list. Like, we barely made the list. But New Jersey is nowhere to be found. Numbers, okay? These, I kid you not, these are the numbers that Atlanta gathered. In between 2012 and 2017, the city of Atlanta was able to create over 10,000 jobs, tech-related jobs, not just any job, tech-related jobs, because of the startup companies that inhabit there. And in 2017, they received over $1 billion of VC money. This is not state incentive. This is not tax credit. This is venture capitalists coming in and investing in the city, in the startups in the city. That's a lot of money. And then we have Seattle. Again, within the same 5-year period, 2012 to 2017, over 7,500 jobs created and more than $1.7 billion invested in 2017. Philly is also no chump either. We actually created a lot of jobs compared to Seattle. Within the same 5 years, 8,500 and more jobs, tech-related, were created. And $629 million invested in Philly. That's a pretty good amount. Again, these are VC money. These are people who are just from the outside coming in and investing in the city. This is not tax incentives. So now that we've seen that this has been done before and we see pretty good numbers from some of the top cities in the US, the question begs, what did these cities do to attract that many startups and achieve that kind of growth? And I actually don't know the answer. So I can't tell. No, well, hang on. We're getting there. About a week ago, I did not know the answer to this. So during the very first version, this is why we have a new version. The first version of this pitch deck, I did not know the answer to this question. And so I decided to ask people who did. All right, you know the answer, you ask people who are much smarter than you who have done this before. And so there was an event in Denver, Colorado. It was called the Startup Champions Network. And get this, this event is a biannual event that gathers all the ecosystem builders in the country in one place to discuss ideas, best practices, and strategies on how to bring startups to their city and retain them. Well, holy crap, right? I mean, if there's one place to find the answer, this is it. And so Melissa and I, we got on a red eye and we flew to Denver, barely made it there for the conference, took an Uber there. Excellent. And as soon as I got there, I ran to the front and I took a picture Now this is about 75 people. Now these are people who run accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces, investors, CEOs of large companies, and fund managers. Like you name it, they're here. These are the leaders who have done this before. And these are the people who know how to build a startup community and bring startups to the city. And so the day one, we just kind of went over some stuff, had a lot of workshops. Next slide. Day two, and I want to comment on something that Paul did. We got an opportunity to meet Kimball Musk. If anyone's familiar, he is the younger brother of Elon Musk and is an incredibly talented, highly successful entrepreneur. He was discussing food tech and discussing how his startup is actually bringing farm to table, bringing food directly from the farm in Denver, directly to the restaurants that he owns. And he also discussed the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Denver and across the country and how this is really the way to go. And on day three, it was somewhat of a hectic day, but I took advantage of the last day in Denver to interview as many people as I could. So I walked up to every single person that seems like they know what they're talking about, and I asked them some questions. Amongst those questions are, how did you manage to attract startups to your city? And then, of course, how did you manage to retain them? That's why I came there. All right, so 3 days in Denver, met 75 leaders, 27 interviews. What exactly did I learn? I learned unanimously, without exception, all 27 people that I interviewed. Now, I didn't interview 75, but I think 27 is enough numbers to, validate a claim. Every single one of these cities, the leaders in the cities, they were able to attract startups by building what's called a startup ecosystem. And I'm going to break that down in 5 steps. So it's not just a general loose idea, we're going to go into how they actually did it. The first step to building a startup ecosystem is actually having co-working spaces. And I'm sure Brad can agree with that. Co-working spaces is vital. And all 27 told me that a co-working space is a foundation to building a strong community and almost a foundation to bringing more economy within that region. And I think it's going to be events and programs. This may seem a little obvious, but why would you come to a new city? There's nothing going on there. Why do you go to Austin? Look at the South by Southwest, right? Why did we come here? We drove 45 minutes here because of this event. Naturally, events and programs attract people. And luckily, if you have co-working spaces, and I'm sure Brett can attest to this, co-working spaces will host those events for you. As a city, you don't have to worry about that. Co-working spaces naturally want to host a lot of events and programs, and as a result, that's going to start changing the narrative of the city. Rather than being a boring city or a boring state, people are now coming for all these events and programs. And when they go, they get to experience a beautiful space such as co-works or other co-working spaces. They get to see your city for what it could be, not for the barren desert that it was before. And third, so let's say you have some co-working spaces within the city. You have a lot of events and programs, and things are going really good. And now you attract a lot of startups. You have hundreds, if not thousands of startups coming into the city. Now what? Are they just going to work there, go to events, and go home? Yes, but you don't want that. You want to keep them there. But the important thing is that you want the startups to be very successful because you don't want just a bunch of little startups. You want the startups to become a billion-dollar company. You want an Airbnb, you want an Amazon in that city, right? You want a Microsoft. And the way we do that is by having accelerators or incubators. Does anybody know what these are? Okay, I'll go into that. An accelerator, think of it essentially as a crash course. It's typically run inside of a co-working space or another facility where it's a 6-month to 1-year program where a startup company goes in and says, hey, I'm new, I don't know what I'm doing. Could you please teach me? The accelerator or incubator then brings on mentors, advisors, guest speakers, and provide them with all the resources they need in order to take their idea to fruition. So that's what the accelerator does. And by the end of the 6th month or 1 year, the accelerator will have maybe 10 graduates. And these 10 graduates are people who went through everything and and now they have this stuff together. More than likely, they're going to receive an investment. Because investors know that if you went through the accelerator, you're more than qualified. It's like going through college. If you go through college, people will assume you're much more qualified. That's what an accelerator is. And so let's say you got the co-working space, you got the event, you got the accelerator, and now you have, every year, you have 10, 20, 50 startups graduating from the accelerator. Now what? Well, now they leave. Because now they know what they're doing. And now they're going to go to California. Now they're going to go to New York. Now they're going to go to where the money is. Right? That's exactly what happened. Unless you provide the funding. And here's where Governor Murphy's proposal comes in. If we do this in the state of New Jersey, and we're able to groom all these startup companies, they will leave unless there is funding for them. So, imagine, now one of the stipulations of the 500 million is that they would have to stay in New Jersey. They cannot leave for a certain number of periods, and they must hire Jersey residents and Jersey students. I'm sure of that. So when you provide funding, not only does that keep the startup within the city, the state, but what it also does is create a powerful case study. Now imagine you're a startup company, and you read on the news on Forbes that this company just got 20 million invested by the state of New Jersey, and they worked at CoWork, for example, and they worked in this community. They attended these programs, they went through this accelerator, and through this accelerator, they received 20 million. What are you gonna do? You're gonna pack and go. That's literally what you're gonna do. And that's literally what everyone does, is that when people hear funding, they flock to that area, especially if they know there is an accelerator there. And the last piece, to retain the startups, requires universities and colleges. The state of California, most notably Silicon Valley and San Francisco Bay Area, is so successful, and it's one of the most widely known regions in the world in terms of innovation and startup. It's because of the universities. Universities such as Stanford University and Berkeley, they provide talent. So imagine you're a startup, okay? You just went through the accelerator, you got your funding. Now what are you gonna do? 20 million, you're not buying a Lamborghini, you're hiring. So with that new funding, you're gonna build your company, and most immediately, you're going to hire all the staff. But a lot of your staff may be in other cities, unless your state or your city has those talent pools readily available. So with the funding and with the talent pool, the startup are going to stay within that city. And so there you have it. That's how literally every single city that has been successful at bringing startups, driving up the local economy, taking advantage of real estate and utilizing the real estate to build co-working spaces, accelerators, and building an ecosystem that fosters growth, innovation, and is habitable for startups. They went through these 5 particular journeys. There is no exception. All 27 told me, and I'm sure if I interviewed the remaining 50-some, they would tell me the same exact story. Investing in startups is the single best investment the city can make towards its future. We're not the first state or city to have done this. This has been done many times. This was done 30 years ago by Silicon Valley. It was done 10 years ago by Seattle. And it's currently being done right now in Wynwood, Miami. And it was done last week in Denver, Colorado. So I do believe that our governor is actually up to something that could actually stimulate the local economy. Because like he said, what we're doing hasn't worked. And there's an old saying that what got us here won't get us there. And so now we have to change the strategy. And to close the presentation, I want to share a quote with you guys, but this is not like any other quote that you've ever seen. This quote was not from Instagram. This quote is not from somebody dead. This quote was actually given to me last week on Tuesday by the CEO of Priceline, or the previous CEO, Scott Case. He gave a presentation about entrepreneurship, and he said, in the future, startups will be the biggest employers, not small businesses or Fortune 500 companies. And that's directly from the CEO of Priceline. So, with that, I conclude my presentation, and thank you.